so easy to throw in the towel and go, what's the point? Like, what's the point of learning and consuming and reading another book? Because the last 10 books I read did nothing. What's the point of setting up goals? What's the point of creating a daily plan or creating a daily schedule? Here inside of this episode and this particular train of thought, I want to talk about my thoughts on what's kind of happened to my brain over the last week with the elections on. Firstly, I'm still baffled as to why I care about the elections per se, because I'm not in America. I'm in Australia. I'm in Melbourne. And yet, as I'm talking to Eddie, Eddie lives in Pennsylvania. He's been working with me over the last 18 months. Eddie is my go-to guy for absolutely everything inside of the company. I find myself distracted. I find myself off focus. I find myself trying to continue to write the guide as I'm writing this book for 2021. And I'm finding myself like getting pulled away. It's becoming really, really difficult for me to focus. It's becoming really difficult for me to actually set a task. And it's weird because I have always told myself that business is a competitive sport, and the people that win in business are the people that are the most strategic. Like, you have to be strategic. You also have to have an immense amount of focus and discipline, because inside of business, there are almost two things that are happening. I essentially have the business that I currently have right now, and then I essentially have another business, the business that I want to build. And the business that I want to build based off the business that I currently have, due to the insatisfaction, I should say, or I'm not satisfied with the business that I have. And so that creates the problems inside of this business, allows me to innovate and think about what I want to create inside of the future. And so in order to do this, you essentially run two businesses. And if you can't focus and your mind starts to wander around, it becomes really hard to actually execute. It becomes really hard to complete tasks. And if you don't execute, now it drifts into other areas of your life. You no longer have a life, because every person with a business essentially has a baby. And if you can't get that baby up to a place where that baby consistently feeds itself, or the business is you, and that's one of the most difficult things that you can face. Funnily enough, Kerry started to understand where I was coming from with business a little bit more when she had O, because in the first couple of months, O was feeding on her breast for milk, and O was very reliant. And so the stress, the anxiety that you'll feel running your own business is the stress and anxiety of having a newborn that can't feed itself. It's very reliant on you. It becomes you. And if you can't get it to a place where it is self-sustaining, it can become quite traumatic. You don't want to enjoy life. You don't feel like spending your weekends away enjoying life itself, and you can ultimately become trapped. And I've seen this happen quite a lot. I've experienced this myself. And so business is this idea of being one of the most competitive sports, and it's a long sport. And regardless of where you are today, and most people think that just because you're losing today, that you'll continue to lose forever, that you'll continue to lose a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. And it's very disheartening, because it's so easy to throw in the towel and go, what's the point? Like, what's the point of learning and consuming and reading another book? Because the last 10 books I read did nothing. What's the point of setting up goals? What's the point of creating a daily plan or creating a daily schedule? What's the point of setting up quarterly challenges and targets? What's the point of reflecting? And it's quite easy to get into this assumption where you go, just because it's not working for you today, it can feel as though things are never going to work out for you. And yet that's not the case. Yet at the same time, there's on the flip side, people that are doing well today doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be doing well a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. Over the last 6 years, I've seen people that have done tremendously well just disappear into the abyss. I don't know why, how. Maybe their business imploded on themselves. Maybe they grew too fast. Maybe they had issues at home. Maybe their wife divorced them or husband divorced them. Maybe they just thought, I don't want to do this anymore. Whatever the case might be, understand that the business landscape is really a long game, and it doesn't matter necessarily where you are. What matters is, do you have the habits, routines, and the mindset to be able to sustain this and build this? And so, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that business is a competitive sport, and inside of natural evolution, Darwin's theory that the strongest and the fittest will always survive. And in order to be fit and strong inside of business, you need to be fit and strong here. You need to be both strategic, and you also need to be tactical. And strategy, I see a lot of people being tactical because tactics are lazy. Tactical people are lazy. Strategic people generally think and plan ahead, and they have a desire to create what it is that they want. tactical people aren't sure what they want. They're instantly gratified by doing the thing that they need to do now to scratch the itch, and they don't spend a lot of time thinking about what they want. I know because I was tactical for years. Like I would spend so long on sales calls for a long time until I thought, well, hold on a second, this is a very tactical plan. Because for 1 hour of my time I'm spending here, I only get 1 hour back in return. What's a more strategic thing that I need to do? And what's the more strategic thing that I need to do in order to create leverage for myself, in order to get more attention, in order to build brand, in order to build trust, to not be so tactical and think about the unit of time right now. And the difference between being strategic and tactical, you need both work, but the difference over time is exponential. Like if I'm putting in the same amount of effort as you and I'm using the same tactics as you, but I'm more strategic, over the span of 10 years, you and I are going to end up in different places. And I started to see this. And I didn't see this at the start. Because at the start, when you're trying to feed that newborn baby, which is your business, you're trying to survive. You're just trying to keep the food flowing inside of the mouth. It doesn't matter. And that's the case. Like, in order to be practical, it's a combination between knowing when to use the tactics and knowing when to execute and then knowing when to transition. And so focus and discipline becomes your biggest skill, because you've got to focus on working and feeding the baby right now. And then you've got to think about how to strategically create the baby that you want, which is, how do I create the systems, the processes to create this baby so that it feeds itself over time? How do I create the systems, the branding, the positioning in order to get myself in front of more people? How do I create content on a consistent basis in order to actually allow the person, the prospect who's coming inside of my world, to actually understand what it is that I'm trying to say, what it is that I'm trying to articulate to them, so that they can actually see the same worldview that I have? And inside of seeing the same vision, the same worldview, they might actually gravitate towards that. They might actually agree with that. They might actually go, you know what, Lynn, I love some of your shit. Do you have anything that I can buy? And how can you help me accelerate my results to move closer towards the vision? And so business is difficult. Like the majority of people that start businesses don't actually want to run a business. What they actually want is they want to get paid, and they want to have freedom, and they want to get looked after, and they don't want to be stuck in the whole stigma of the 9 to 5. And a lot of people starting businesses nowadays, when they ask me for advice, and people do ask me for advice, which I'm extremely grateful for, I say, look, the best thing that you need to do is you need to build your skill sets, figure out how to add as much skill sets and knowledge to your arsenal as possible, and go out to another business, add value to them, because you don't have the responsibility of figuring out how to create this baby from scratch, feed the baby, and then figure out how to strategically get the baby to feed itself, and then grow the baby with people. It's a legitimate feat. And so there's one last final thought I want to add to this, is when you start to see the game and you start to learn the game, and the game is focus, the game is being strategic, the game is not just being tactical. And when you're able to focus on yourself and you stop worrying about what everybody else is doing, you stop worrying about who's on Instagram or who's on Facebook or who are your friends absolutely crushing it on the outside, then it makes you feel insignificant, because people share what they want to share. And one of the craziest things that I want to reiterate here is, how do you know people are telling you the truth? How do you know people are telling you the truth? Like, it was crazy. I was watching the Trump and Biden debate, and I'm like, I look at Biden lying through his teeth about fracking, and I'm like, this guy's just lying, because I've seen videos of him talking about it, and he just lies through his teeth. How do you know people are lying, telling the truth? And here's the reality: you can't. What determines lies and truth are simply facts. And if you can't have the facts, and you can't see the facts, and the facts are the numbers, the facts are real. So unless you see the facts of this other person that you're comparing yourself to, and what I mean by the facts, the amount of profit, the amount of money they have inside of the bank account, how they're making their money, how happy they are, what their wife or partner will say about them, how they're actually living, how many bills do they have, how much cash do they actually bring in. Until you have the full facts, there's no point creating an assumption and trying to compare yourself to them. That only leads to unhappiness, because the craziest part about this is we're constantly comparing ourselves to other versions of other people, yet the only person that we need to compare ourselves to is focusing on us. Why? Because it's easy to gossip about other people. It's easy. It's easy to... My brain, I'm fighting this morning. Like, I'm sitting down here trying to write this book, and my brain's trying to fight, because I'm like, who's going to win Pennsylvania? I'm like, I don't even know where Pennsylvania is. I don't give a fuck about where Pennsylvania is, but my brain's going into this place, because we're wired as human beings, as interactive creatures, to get into drama and chaos. This is why reality TV shows exist. Drama, chaos. Any time that you see things online, the most amount of views, there's always some sort of drama, there's also some sort of gossip, there's also some sort of chaos involved with it. And so the reality is, getting involved in none of that to me doesn't actually enhance my life whatsoever. It doesn't actually matter who wins, Trump or Biden, at the end of the day. What I do know is that people are still going to be unhappy. Let it fizzle out for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then what they're left with is their own life and their own worldview and what's happening, the facts of what's happening inside of their life every single day, and that nothing's absolutely changed. And if it has, it changes a little bit, but that change doesn't actually affect them. They think it does. What affects them is the experiences that you and I have every single day, the experiences that we wake up, the experience that we do something meaningful, the experience that we're growing. Yet all of that doesn't come from external forces, it actually comes from the work that we do here every single day. So I wanted to share that with you. Just as I felt this, just as I felt the pull, just as I felt myself pulling off from my focus, from being able to write, from being able to articulate the message, from being able to go and create some deep and meaningful work. And I think there's one last thing I'm going to leave you with. You have to learn how to enjoy making your art. Instead of trying to figure out how to make the money, you figure out how to make your art the best possible thing. You figure out how to create the best possible experience, the best possible product, the best possible program, the best possible service. Have fun in creating the art. I think there are too many people online, and I fell into this trap right at the very beginning, wanting to just market and sell and market and sell and market and sell. And the problem is, if you continue to market and sell, you bring in people that aren't necessarily satisfied with the art. At the end of the day, you really have to do the things that make you full, and you have to focus on creating the art, and you got to enjoy creating the art. I'm going to go deeper into that thought, and hopefully I'll be able to create a better video to articulate that thought. But that being said, I want to leave you with this final thought. The only thing that you need to focus on is what you're currently building, what you're currently doing, how you're creating deep and meaningful work, the people that you're surrounded. Like, do you have your shit sorted for the people around you? Because I often know that if you're building a business and you don't take care of your shit in business, then you're not going to be a very good human being to your wife, to your spouse, to your partner, your kids, the people around you. You're going to be horrible. Like, if you don't take care of your own shit, especially in business, you're not going to be a very nice person. So every single day, my own focus is to handle my shit earlier on throughout the day. With that being said, that's all I got for you. Leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. What does this trigger for you? What thought does this trigger for you? Are you getting pulled to by the election? Does the election have anything to do with you? Or is that the worldview? Is that the story that you think it does? And thus you're trying to give it the attention, the drama that you warrant inside of your brain. That being said, thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you next time. And I hope you enjoyed this video.